אשרי האיש אשר לא הלך בעצת רשעים ובדרך חטאים לא עמד ובמושב לצים לא ישב כי אם בתורת אדוני חפצו ובתורת אויב יומם ולילה והיה כחד שתול על פלגי מים אשר פריו ייתן בעתו והלכו לא ייבול וכל אשר יעשם יצליח לכן הרשעים כי אם כמוץ אשר תדפנו רוח על כן לא יקומו רשעים במשפט וחטאים בהדת צדיקים כי יודע אדוני דרך צדיקים ודרך רשעים תאבד.
Kol omer kra v'amar ma'ekra, kol habasar chatzir, v'chol chasto ketzitz hasadeh, yavesh chatzir navel tzitz ki ruach Adonai nashvabo. A voice says, cry out. But I ask, what shall I cry? All flesh is like grass. All of its beauty is like the flower of the field. The grass withers and the flower fades when a wind from God blows upon it. Surely, therefore, people are like grass. The grass withers and the flower fades, but the word of God endures forever. LeDavid mizmor l'Adonai haaretz umloa, tevel v'yoshveva, ki hu al yamim yesada, ve'al nehorot yechoneneha. Mi ya'aleh bahar Adonai, umi yakum bimkom kadsho, neki chapayim uvar levav, asher lo nasa lashav nafshi v'lo nishba lemirma. The earth is the Lord's, with all of its fullness. The world is the Lord's, with all of its inhabitants. Who may ascend the mountain of the Lord? Who may stand in the holy place? He who has clean hands and a pure heart. He will receive a blessing from the Lord and a just reward from the God of deliverance. Fred and Sally came to visit you, Ernie, but you found out quickly that they kept much later hours than you did. They wanted to go out dancing, but it was too late for you, which taught all of you something. Ernie, you were getting old, even as your father was getting young. He seemed to get younger as he got older. I know that this last period, of course, showed a decline, but for a period of years there, Fred seemed younger even as he grew older. We know the expression when someone's getting old, but Fred was getting young. Sally, you two traveled together, and you danced together. You sent out great New Year's cards. You skated together. When you met Fred, he was a very, very strong skater. And I know that one of the keys to being a strong skater is to have very good balance. And Fred had very good balance, not only in skating, but in life. He was mild, but also had real strength of character. He was sweet and pleasant, but he was also very determined in his views and in his efforts to reach his goals. Case in point, he wanted to serve in the war as a young man, but he knew his eyesight was very poor, much too poor to serve. And a story he liked to tell was that he memorized the eye chart so he could get into the war. He was still able to recite that eye chart in the last year. He was a wonderful partner for you. He was very adaptable, but he had his own individual presence as well. Most of all, as you all know, he was a kind and a decent man, a man people could trust, a man of his word, a caring man, and a giving man. He was a very giving man to you. You two walked into my office in 1993. A little nervous. You had to ask my permission to get married, I remember. I checked your background. I checked his background. You both seemed clean, stayed out of trouble. I want you to know these 23 years sure make me look good as an expert on good marriages. And of course, Fred brought his own special decency into the marriage with you. I met him when he was caring for Shirley. During her illness, he provided the atmosphere that she wanted and that she craved. At home, that's what she wanted. In her own home, in her own room, in her own environment, and he was there for her. It was a private environment for the two of them, and he gave her exactly what she needed. He was dutiful and responsible to her. Nothing fancy. Shirley was not that way. He was responsive to her in her illness as he had been throughout life. It was in his nature to care and to respond, to be what the other person needed. He had commented that his own father had been so loving and so caring to Fred's mother, and he learned from that. He retained that. As you grew to know each other and to love each other, you realized you each had had the experience of being a caregiver for a loved one, for your spouses during illness, at the end of life. I think he found in you a kindred spirit, and of course, even in the differences of your own personalities, he loved your passion for life. You two lived. You two really lived. If there were an adventure to be taken, an experience to share, a new activity to be learned, you took it on. At 72 years of age, he had been worried whether he was too old to start a new chapter with you. He didn't start a chapter with you. He wrote a book with you. It was a book of life. That's a phrase that's very important to us. You two wrote a book of life together. A beautiful, vibrant, fulfilling book of life. What a testimony to the two of you. What a tribute. And what a lesson to all of us about living and about life. I am really glad I gave you permission to marry. You know, we all have a moment in life when we really have to decide whether we want to live or not. What attitude, in other words, what attitude are we going to bring in to the years that we have? Will we continue to set goals? Will we continue to want to learn and to grow? Fred made a decision to keep growing his entire life. He was an eternal learner and lover of life. After his health scare with his heart, he had to decide, will I choose to live? After building homes as a career and being very successful, and then getting out, he had to decide, will I just stop living or will I set new goals? And his work with Beechwood and the schools and other volunteering are testimony to his life going on. And then in losing Shirley, he faced the crucial question again, and he chose life. He was a wonderful man who also reconnected, of course, in these last 20 years with his faith, with his religion, with his extended family, because again, he chose life. A family is like building a home. It needs a good foundation. Fred used that analogy with you. And that's how he lived it. His sons, Ernie and Don, learned those core values from him at home because they were indeed watching Fred build a good foundation. We have a number of speakers today, each speaking about a different place and a different phase of Fred's life. So Ernie and Don, please come forward.
Well, thank you all very much for joining us to say goodbye to our father. We're sad he's gone, but we're also very grateful and somewhat amazed that we're having this ceremony in the year 2016 rather than sometime back in the 20th century, because Don and I have been saying goodbye to our dad off and on for the past 54 years. Since 1962, when he survived a heart attack but was informed by his doctors that He had severe artery damage that might well cause another fatal heart attack at any time. There was no easy cure for his condition at that time, as there is today. And I vividly remember my mother crying in the night while he was in the hospital at the prospect that she'd be a widow in her early 40s with 2 teenage boys to support and only a high school education. By 1962, our dad had paid most of his membership dues in the Greatest Generation. Grew up in the Depression, served in the war, came home, raised a family, built homes, communities, and helped build the Beechwood school system. He checked a lot of boxes by the age of 42. But the guy that some of you know as Fat-Free Freddy weighed over 200 pounds, had cholesterol above 300, smoked cigars, enjoyed chocolate cake, steak, and butter. Not in the same meal, Rabbi Scoff. We want you to bless him when we're done. And he could become surprisingly angry at life's minor irritations.
However, all that changed in 1962 and after. Under the visionary guidance of Dr. Herman Hellerstein, Dad changed his diet. He exercised religiously. He even went to a psychotherapy. And over time, he changed his personality from the hard-driving, stressed-out type A to the mellower and philosophical type A minus B plus. He loved his family, and he loved life, and he didn't want to leave, ever. And because of his extraordinary willpower, discipline, and adaptability, he was there on the graduation stage as president of the school board to hand Ernie his high school diploma. He was there to see Ernie and me graduate from college. He was there to see his grandchildren born and grow up to help them graduate from college. He was there after 50 years of marriage to care for our mother in her final years. He was there to meet Sally and enjoy life in the 21st century. 23 years of a second marriage. That was a miracle all in its own. And he was there to meet and cradle his great-grandson, Sebastian, on Thanksgiving Day, 2014. So we love you, Dad. We'll miss you, but we're lucky you were our father, and we're thankful and truly in awe that you stayed with us for as long as you did.
Now Don and Ernie's children.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Alan Isenstadt, Fred's grandson. And I'm speaking on behalf of my sister Megan and my cousins Jill and Ruth. And we are Don and Ernie's children. We all sat down to talk about our experience with our grandfather. What stood out immediately was that we've already had two distinct experiences. Knowing Grandpa as kids, and then later on in our 20s and 30s. I imagine we'll hear lots of stories today about our grandpa's sense of humor. And as adults, his humor has been a delightful part of every visit, an opportunity to remind ourselves that we can always find a reason to laugh if we choose. Looking back, however, we realize that as children, a lot of this went over our heads. For example, as a kid, he used to say, I have this condition, it's called OLD. And of course, I was thinking to myself, what's this condition OLD? This sounds kind of odd. And what I came to realize is that, this was, of course, a grandpa joke. But I started wondering whether maybe something was wrong and that, things, that the things I thought were true as when you grow older, you have greater wisdom, a sense of accomplishment, you spend more time with family, weren't true, and this disorder might take hold of me as well. So the lesson we learned there was puns are lost on kids, right? So being able to fully understand and enjoy Grandpa's fantastic and sometimes dry sense of humor was one of the reasons that we as grandchildren really came to love, spending time with him later on as adults. But more importantly, what I want to, say today is that our grandpa was a man of integrity, a true ascetic. So righteous, true to his word, someone that stood up for the principles, and he put his actions into practice. So his thoughts into practice. And so, for us, he was just our grandfather, but I think for many of you here today, he was much, much more. And as kids and adults, he was always there for us, supportive, loved us, and was able to influence in our lives because he lived his so fully. So I think what's most reminiscent is that this time we spent together, he challenged each of us to make every day count. We are so grateful for all the time with our grandfather as children and especially as adults. And it has enabled us to preserve these memories, his humor, his life lessons, and we will always keep him with us. Thank you.
Albert?
When I dressed this morning and was looking at what tie I would wear, my eyes turned to the tie hat of the American flag. And I chose to wear it today because it reminded me of something that I lived through and most of you did not. And that was the greatest generation and why they were called the greatest generation. And Fred was one of the greatest of the great generation. In the Jewish religion, we're taught that we live on the shoulders of giants. And Fred is an example of a kind of giants that came before us. Our cousin Fred was one of 21 children born to the 9 children of my grandparents, Morris and Peshet. His mother, my Aunt Frida, was born in 1988. She was the oldest child of a family of 9, and my Aunt Fanny and her twin brother Joseph, who died on Ellis Island when members of the family came to the United States, were the youngest. And thus we had a spread of 21 years among the cousins. Fred and his 2 brothers, Ted and Julius, were the 3 oldest of the grandchildren. And while we knew them, all 3 of them, and I worked actually with Julius, the one we were the closest with was Fred because he was approximately our age. Fred was born on November 10th, 1920, the same day, the same year as my father Leonard, my Uncle Harry, arrived at Ellis Island from Bialystok, Poland. My Aunt Frida, his mother, came to America in 1904 at the age of 16. She married a first cousin by marriage, my Uncle Charlie Isenstadt. Born between 1920, when Fred was born, and 1931, when my cousin Judy and Billy were born, there were 7 cousins in the family: Fred, Ruth, Marilyn, myself, Roz, Billy, and Judy. Fred was our role model. We idolized him. He went to Glenville High School and Western Reserve University. He was the one member of the family who we could associate with that had gone to college. Of the brothers and sisters, none of the 9 went to college, but Uncle Max managed, without going to college, to get a law degree. Fred was my first employer. From 1935 to 1940, the Depression years, Fred sold pop and ice cream at the cottage on the beach. Of course, no one could afford to buy pop or ice cream at that time because it was a depression. But you learned as a Ratner child, whatever you needed, whenever you needed money or to sell anything, you could count on aunts and uncles to bail you out. I was his first assistant. I would run ahead, take the order, Fred would give it to me, and I would collect the money. Of course, I was paid in pop and ice cream. Fred was smart. As kids, we thought, and still do, he was brilliant. Our family came in two flavors, Schreiers or Yellers, and quiet. Fred came from the quiet side, not making himself heard through volume. Fred was an excellent businessman, consummate community leader, and like his parents, aunts, and uncles, a man of great humility. He often repeated what my grandmother had said, and we talked about it often. This is a Meshuggah world. One final thought. I've often said that the strength in our family comes from the women, both the women who were born into our family and those who we married. It started with my grandmother Pesha, who was clearly the head of our family and continues to this day. Sally, you said to me that when you married Fred, he promised you 10 years and he gave you 23. That is true. But in the tradition of the women of our family, you and the children gave Freddie, or as I called him, Fritzl, 23 of the best years of his life. Without you, they would have been many fewer and less joyful. Thank you. Fred, we will miss you, but never forget you. You connected the older world to the new world for all your cousins. You protected me because you were the oldest member of the family, and now that honor goes to me. You represent all of the best of us. God bless you.
Paul?
I am Paul Isenstadt. My father, Ted, was Fred's oldest brother, and when I was born, Uncle Fred was only 20 years old. And everything Albert said are the stories that I've heard. But my stories start back when I would come to Cleveland as young as 6 years old on the train, had breakfast with my grandfather, Fred and Julius and Ted's father, at Clark's Restaurant at East 55th and Euclid. And then we would go visit my grandmother, who was quite ill and infirm, but was always a spirit when I went to see her. Then I would hook up with Uncle Fred, spend time with he and Uncle Julius, and then also spend time with Uncle Max, Aunt Betty, and her boys. All of my life, I lived and grew up in New Jersey. And my father was the first one to leave Cleveland. And boy, there was quite a stir about that. But Fred was a great supporter of that. Through my childhood, I had a younger brother, David, who was profoundly retarded, developmentally disabled, and needed a lot of care. The family was always there for us, and Uncle Fred was always there. He and Uncle Julius brought us a car. They helped us out. I know there was financial help when I was younger, but there was a lot of emotional support for my parents who were really alone in New Jersey and needed that. What a spirit to come visit Uncle Fred and walk around in the mud when he was building a home with his brother-in-law, Hank. And then we went for lunch always at Lenny's or one of those places. That was before the food conversion treatment. He went to ball games. I met Dante Lavelli. Some of you may know the name. He worked across from the Forest City Yard. He was a football player for the Browns. He took me to baseball. He took me to football. He took me and shared with me many issues in life. And as I grew, and my dad died when I was in early 40s, he was really a confidant for me in many ways. When you called Uncle Fred, and if he didn't answer, what did you get on the phone? Don't add to my hang-ups, leave a message. Classic. I love it. And that's part of Fred. A good person, a good human being, strong values. When he left the building industry and all the work he did for Jewish Family Service, and my dad was the director of Jewish Family Service in New Jersey and Los Angeles, so there was a kind of a neat connection there. But all in all, a wonderful man, a wonderful husband to Shirley, and a wonderful partner to Sally, who's been a wonderful partner to him and the boys and their family. I'll miss him, but I carry him every day. Something reminds me of Fred Isenstadt, and I think for all of us, we should remember that inside us. I'll miss you, Uncle Fred. I love you.
Flint and Julie and Mina.
Hi everyone, I'm Flint Weinberg Fitzgerald, and I'm honored to be here to speak on Fred's behalf. This is a letter I wrote to Fred while I was away at boarding school this past year, and I was asked by Nanny Sally to read it. Dear Fred, I hope all is well back in Cleveland. My mom told me you seem to be slowing down lately, so I decided to write you a letter to check up on you. To be perfectly honest, I don't buy into the whole Fred is slowing down nonsense. I know you still have a good amount of gas left in the tank for a fact. Anyway, I just wanted to share with you a little bit on my feelings towards you and show my appreciation for you. Ever since I was a little kid, as far as I can remember, you were telling me how good of a boy I am and how good I am at baseball. I feel that is a part of the reason I am so confident in myself today. I never was able to meet my blood-related grandfather, Forrest, who I heard so much about. He sounds like a wonderful man, but I wouldn't choose to have it any different, and I never have or will. I have always looked up to you, and I have always aspired to be as successful as you are. I have learned so many important life lessons from you that I will never forget. I appreciate you so much and all that you have done for my family, especially treating my grandmother Sally as well as you have. Do not let Nanny Sally take you guys to a place where Uncle Herbie is at. I know you don't want that, and if you ever need help, I would love to move to Cleveland and help you guys out. I just wanted to write you this little letter to know that I'm thinking of you and tell you I love you. Words can never describe my appreciation for you. I'm looking forward to seeing you again and hope to hear back from you. Love, Flint. And I have the response from Fred here. Dear Flint, thank you for your very special letter that arrived on my 95th birthday, 11/10/2015. I consider it to be my best birthday gift because it reminds me of all the fun experiences we've shared together. I think of you often and hope you are having a good year at your academy. Glad to know you are able to play baseball again. how I loved going to your Arizona games and cheering for you. You are a very special guy, and your school is lucky to have you, Fred. Fred has meant so much to me my whole life. Like I said, I never was able to meet Grandfather Forrest, and even though we have no blood relation, Fred is just my normal grandfather. I don't look at him any different. I grew up with him. He was there when I was born. He's always been such an important person in my life, and I can take so much away from him. And I just aspire to be the man that Fred was, and I will miss him so much, and I love him so much. Thank you.
Sally?
To lower this. Is that okay? Okay. Those grandkids are really special, aren't they? Wow. Well, as you all know, Fred had many clever, witty sayings. And one of my favorite, if you have a choice between brains and luck, choose luck. You see, it was my lucky Sunday when he started choosing me as one of his ice skating partners. And as it happened, that led to our wonderful marriage. So I would like to close today with a song that I wrote for Fred for his 95th birthday. I stole the idea and music from George Gershwin. I think I need some water. Thank you. Some of the family have heard this song before. The way you sip your tea, the way you nap at 3, the way you eat fat-free. No, you can't take that away from me. The way you skate and dance, that's how we found romance. The way you took the chance, oh no, you can't take that away from me. He had 95 years to navigate this bumpy road called life. 23 of those years, I've been a lucky wife. Doc Hellerstein helped save his heart. The Beechwood schools he helped to start. The handicapped, he did his part. Fred, you were the wind beneath my wings, turning winters into springs. No, you can't take that away. No, you can't take that away. Everybody join me. No, you can't take that away from me. You'll announce about coming. Will you announce about
Let's rise now for the memorial prayer.
אמצי מנוחה נכונה, תחת כנפי השכינה, במחלות קדושים דקורים, כזוהר גרקי המסגרים, את נשמת פרד אייזנשטאט, שהלך לעולמו, בגן עדן תחי מנוחתו. אנא בעל הרחמים, הסתירייגו בסתר כנפך לעולמים. ותצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו, אדוני ונחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר Amen.
May we remember all of the worthy and the righteous deeds that he performed in the land of the living. May he rest in peace. We all say Amen. Let's be seated. We want to offer our condolences to the family, to Sally, to Ernie and Judith, Don and Patricia, Megan, Jill, Alan, and Ruth, Sebastian, Faith, and Lisa, Flint, Julie, Mina. The family will be receiving friends at the residence, 3300 Green Road in Beechwood on Wednesday. That's on Wednesday tomorrow from 1 to 3 p.m. and 7 to 9 p.m. and on Thursday from 1 to 3 p.m. So tomorrow and Thursday at the residence at 3300 Green Road. Immediately following the burial portion of the service today, however, family will be receiving friends for the Shiva visitation on Cedar Road at Acacia Reservation. That's the old country club right across the street from the mall there, the big white building. So we will gather together there immediately following the burial portion of the service. Please remain in your seats for another moment. The pallbearers should now come forward as we arrange the processional to the burial spot.